It only took 5 years, but here we have my first how-to general use of a Coticule video, as opposed to something specific related to odd geometric shapes like I did in 2010. Okay, since 2010, I have only used a Coticule, whichever one I've been using in the office to hone the customer blades, plus water, plus a strop to keep my little fleet of razors I use on my face running. I have about 8 razors I use, and I shave with a straight razor about 200 times a year. So every 6 to 10 shaves or so, whenever one of those razors is not honing, or shaving as well as I wish it would, I bring it back to the office because I try to keep Coticules out of my house. I have too many messy hobbies for my wife, and I use the Coticule with the razor exactly the same way I do with the customer razors, and then I take it home, and then it's good for another 6 to 10 shaves or so. Okay, so if you're into the idea of trying a Coticule, let's dispense with a few general axioms about Coticules. First of all, they're not that keen. They're versus any of the modern Japanese waterstone type systems where they use a binder and some aluminum oxide primarily, or even those ceramic based ones like the Shapton system. As far as I could tell from sitting there looking at a microscope at about 200 times magnification, every single one of those systems makes a scratch pattern on the bevel planes that's a little bit finer looking to me than the best of the Coticule, with the possible exception of the Norton 8000 grit. I think the Coticule might be a little bit finer than that, but as far as any of the premium systems from Shapton, Naniwa, King, or whatever a Japanese chef is using for their knives, all of those highest grit compressed aluminum oxide waterstones are going to make an edge that's a little bit sharper than a Coticule. Number 2, hyper keenness in itself, the keenness that you get that's better from those systems than from a Coticule, cannot cause irritation without help. And it always reduces friction, because hair wants ever more keenness from the knife. The keener that the knife is, the easier that hair follicle is going to be severed, the less tugging sensation you're going to feel as you use it. So knowing that, why would you want to use a Coticule when there's sharper systems out there, and it's always important to have as sharp as possible a blade to hack at those hairs? Well, it's because of people. We're imperfect, and skin itself isn't perfect. And so when you take the factors of the lather creation, stretching the skin with the razor, the angle of incidence of the razor to the skin, the amount of pressure that you use, and your beard preparation techniques, all of those are human influences which can, with the aid of hyperkeenness, make it so that you have more exfoliation of your skin or some cuts than you would with a blade that's not quite as keen. So, a case in point of that, I don't feel like I'm competent with my motor skills to use the Feather Artist Pro system of razors with the professional super blade without cutting myself. Every now and again I've used it and had the most amazing shave of my life. So I know that the potential for the most amazing shave of my life is inside that razor, but I'm just too limited a person, maybe too lazy with beard preparation. Your shoulder is stuck on your hand, and it'd be easier to shave if you could remove your shoulder from where it is on your body, etc., etc. It's too much of a tightrope for me. I could take that same Artist Series razor, and I have done this, to a professional stylist near me, and she gave me a shave with it, and it came out perfect. And I'm sure if I gave it to her, it would come out very close to perfect every single time, because she's got you in the chair, and she does it all day long, and she's staring at the face as opposed to having the shoulder stuck on her body, and she's doing everything possible for the beard prep, etc., etc. So, hyper keenness, it can't cause irritation without help from you. So what the Coticule does is, it has a particular scratch pattern when you look at it in high magnification that looks very shuffled and random. When you compare the best Coticule edge versus a very good edge from a Japanese waterstone, and you look at a high enough magnification, you're going to see that one of them looks like a computer made it, sort of, and the other one looks scrambled all over the place. And that's what Coticles do. They make an edge that's got the scratch pattern that's very randomized, and it's just sharp enough for most people, not all, but for most people, it's just sharp enough that it's going to be able to cut that hair comfortably. So you have something in the end which gives you a little bit of leeway between cutting yourself and shaving yourself, because it's not quite keen enough to just do exactly what you tell it without giving you a little bit of warning to say, hey, if you keep doing what you're about to do, I'm going to give you a cut. When I do that with the feather razor, it didn't give me any warning. It just cuts you and you find out later. I couldn't even feel anything when it was happening. Okay, so knowing that the Coticle is a loser in the keenness race, do you still want to use the Coticle? Good, I'm so happy to hear that, because we sell them. Okay, so what's the secret to good Coticle honing? I like to call it an idea I refer to as X. Okay, and what is X? X is developing a sense of symbiosis between the blade and stone. And that's really the most important thing about using a Coticle. You have to try to understand from your senses, touch, hearing, and sight in that order. You got to understand what it feels like to develop and recognize a good stroke. What is ideal pressure? What is a blade that's liking what you're doing and progressing towards a better edge? And what is a blade that can't get any better from the particular Coticle that you're using? So I would equate it to playing the same note over and over again with one violin bow and one string on the violin until you find the sound from that note that you like. And then once you find that note, you just keep chasing that sound again and again. So all the counting of strokes and comparing on the internet of how much dilution you did and slurry and all this, I think it's all going to be frustrating until you try to understand that concept of X, the mythical sensation of the blade and the stone getting along with one another. Okay, so, and now that I've espoused my stone whisperer bullshit to you, what makes me special for using these stones? The answer is nothing. There's nothing at all that makes me special. I don't even think I have particularly good motor skills, but I've been doing it the same way you're seeing in this video, 2,500 times a year for over 4 years. So in time, even a broken clock is going to be right twice a day. So how do you get to the point where you can hone and not be thinking about it all the time? Well, I always recommend to people that they try to do the honing war of attrition. That means you start with one razor and one stone and one body position and one hand variation. So you minimize everything and you just sit there with water and time going back and forth again and again. Now, as you can see in this video, and which is unfortunately obstructing the camera position, I have to use this little offhand as my record needle on the face of the razor. I would recommend, if you have the honing skills and the motor skills, that you try to hone this way. So in the beginning, don't use one of these little thingamajiggers. Take your rock out of there and put it in your hand and try to learn to hone by squeezing the tang like this and going back and forth and only twisting the tang in your hand.